What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and today we're going to get back into the XFL. I know the XFL is dead, it's gone, but we've got a couple stories that I want to cover, and they're pretty cool stories at that. So if it's your first time here, glad to have you. If you're a return viewer, thanks for coming back and thanks for watching more videos, and if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. And remember, leave me those comments down in the comment section. You know how I love to feature the comments. You know how I love to interact with you guys. You guys come up with some pretty awesome stuff. And so I really do appreciate it. And listen, I appreciate all the love that you guys have been giving me, especially with, us not having sports right now. And so for you guys to continue to watch my content, I really do appreciate that. And as we go, you're going to start to see more and more different things from me in that. Hopefully you like the content. And if you don't, I understand that, and that's fine too. I just appreciate all of the love and the support that you guys give me. All right, let's not waste any more time. So pretty much the XFL, we know where it's at. We know where it's standing. I've covered that in past videos. We know where that's at. But there's just a couple of things that I want to touch on, a couple articles and things that have come out over the past kind of week that I want to touch on. They're really two really good articles. And what they do is they bring me to the point of what I want to talk about today and the reason why I loved the XFL and what the XFL brought to the forefront. Because I really do believe, I don't know if we will ever really truly capture that again, the magic of what the XFL was. But we can reminisce, and we can always hope for the future. We can always look to where possibly, somebody can come and take its place. And like every other good, invention, there'll be something that will take it and use what the knowledge that we gain from this and take to build upon it. And that's what we're all hoping happens. And, we'll see if any of that comes to fruition or not. But with the XFL, there's two articles that have come out that really drive things home for me, and you need to read both of them. I'm not just saying that. These are two really, really good put together articles. Now, I don't know Adam Kramer from anybody else, but he wrote an article for Bleacher Report called "The XFL is Dead, Long Live the XFL." The season is canceled and the league is bankrupt, but for the players, coaches, and innovators at the heart of the XFL, the dream it represented lives on. And that's so true. This article, he does a fantastic job. He goes and he interviews players, coaches. I mean, you got Hal Mummy, you've got June Jones, Luis Perez, and others, and personnel, guys that were just not on the field and part of the actual game, but putting the game together and part of the innovation and creating it, and kind of goes from their journey to the XFL and now where they're focused and looking at going for the future and how it's just a really neat kind of wrap up. And that with it, these are guys that we followed throughout the season, throughout really training camp, the draft, all of that stuff, and just going through it. And these are guys that we were, we got to see them in the trenches and that with it, and to read kind of and reminisce where they've come from and to where they're going. It's just, it was put together in just a beautiful, beautiful fashion. I can't say enough. It was a really neat article to read. I really enjoyed reading the article. It's by Adam Kramer. There'll be a link down in the description. Mad props out to him. Wrote a fantastic article, and it's not just because I like the XFL. I think he did a really good job. I mean, it's kind of, if you took a lot of those NFL films type of documentaries and kind of condensed it down and put it into an article that you can read in about 10-15 minutes tops, that's really what you've got there. It's a fantastic read. It's great. It chronicles these guys' journeys through the XFL and where they're looking to go for the future. Like I said, I loved it. It was fantastic. And then the second article, who knew PJ Walker could write? Now, the Players Tribune had PJ Walker write an article, and he kind of chronicles where he kind of his whole path from the XFL, from really his whole really football career and how it led into the XFL and what the XFL meant and what the XFL was. And it's just really neat and some really good stuff. I mean, in the XFL, we were all on a mission. I mean, and you saw it, and it was real. It was live. It was raw. We were there. That was the thing, is you talk about putting somebody there. One of the things that is truly masterful and really that film does for us is that when you're sitting there watching it, a really good director is going to take, and they're going to take that film and that movie and capture it and do it in such a way that you're going to be invested in what's there. And that brings me to my point for everything today. Read PJ Walker's article. I don't want that to get by. He wrote a fantastic article. He talks about the players, talks about what they were doing. He talks about the grind in the NFL, because I don't think that people truly do understand just how much it is between, the guys that make the squad and just how little it is, and really how the opportunities and the chances, that you really don't get because of one reason or another. And we'll go back to that and we'll talk about that. But what I really loved about the XFL is that we got to see the rawness of what it is. We got to see what football is behind the scenes. So much so what happens, especially with the NFL and the college, they're so worried about the finished product on the field and not taking away from that it's the whole Wizard of Oz thing. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Just pay attention to, the production that we're putting on in front of your face. And we as fans, we want more. We want that access. We don't want access 20 years down the road. We want to see what's happening now. It was so great about the XFL. They did it on two fronts. One, letting us know what's happening with the players and the coaches as they're going through the game. And two, we got to see it through the referees, their calls, the calls that they're making, why they're making the calls that they're making, the decisions up in the booth, why they're making the decisions. We find out the why. On Sundays with the NFL and on Saturdays with college football, we're always seeing how it's played out, and we're always watching it and seeing what transpires. But we never get the why. We never get the lead up to it, to, how all of it was put all together and all of that. And in the XFL, we got to see all of that. We got to see, that these coaches don't necessarily know everything that we think they are. And, and you got to see these guys who are field generals, but you also got to see that, a lot of this, is working with the players and really finding a balance and figuring out. It was really neat to me because I got to watch teams as they went, and they started to figure out, the offenses started to figure out the defense, or the defense would start to figure out the offense. And you'd have Winston Moss calling in saying, "No, you got to move over here, man. You've got to do this. They're doing this to us. You've got to do this, okay? And directing them and what they need to do, where they need to go, what they need to be doing. It was fantastic, and the characters, It's funny. It's almost like I felt like I'm sitting down and watching, some type of some type of a big production TV series where I feel like at the end of the day, I'm starting to get invested in these characters. Like I was invested in PJ Walker, he's a guy you wanted to see him succeed. And when he succeeded, you thought it was awesome. Devion Smith and another guy, you wanted to see, and all of these guys that Luis Perez, as I talked about in the other article. I mean, here's a guy I mean, think about this. All in the course of what happened with the XFL from draft day all the way to where we ended after 5 weeks. Okay, so Luis Perez, he is the tier 1 quarterback assigned to LA. And then the XFL signs Josh Johnson. LA brings in Josh Johnson. They boot Luis Perez out. He goes over to New York. Now, he's the 3rd string quarterback in New York. So what happens there? Mac McGloin just completely implodes. The backup Williams doesn't do much better. What the heck? Might as well throw Luis Perez in there. They throw him in there, and all of the sudden now the offense has changed. This is an offense that's now actually competent. They've got a guy who's not making mistakes throwing the ball. You've got a guy who can zip the ball in there. He's an actual field general leading them down the field, and all of the sudden now life is back for this New York Guardians team. So you took a guy who was on one team in LA. He was at the top, the tippy top. I mean, literally, they made cleats for him in LA. And then he went to the bottom all the way to 3rd string before the season. And at the end of the season is the starting quarterback for the New York team. He literally went from the West Coast to the East Coast, and he went all the way deep down in the valleys to get there. I mean, these are stories, and I love the fact that we got that. We don't get that till after the fact of the NFL. I would love to be able to fall in love with these players and what's going on with them, and the things that are going on the field, and all of this field access and what's going on, especially with the referees. I think it would help the NFL out big time if they did 2 things that the XFL sat there and looked at. And I chalk this up to Dean Blandino, and I chalk this up to Oliver Luck and everyone that they had working on these rules. What they did is they did 2 things. One, they saw how the rules and the way that they're called in the NFL, that how so subjective they can be, that they wanted to simplify it as much as they can to make these calls as easy as possible for the refs to make, so that it wasn't a more of a decision call on them. It was, listen, this is how it needs to be made. This is what it looked like. And they did a good job of that. The second thing that they did on those areas where they were subjected and they did need to make a call or something, instead of having somebody up in the booth who's an apologist, who's going to tell you, that's getting something fed into the ear, i.e. commentators, of what to say, and, to try to make it look good for the refs. Instead, just let the refs say what they're going to say. And what the refs did is they explained everything to us, and they explained their calls to one another. And as they did it, we got a glimpse into why they were thinking it. And you know what? It made sense. And that's just kind of how it was with the XFL. With the referees, I never felt like I was in a position or a place where I was just totally mad and they completely blew it. Now, yes, I will give it that Seattle, the one at the end of the game, that was kind of a botched deal. But you know what they did? They came out, admitted to it. They didn't sweep it under the rug, and they were decisive about it and did something about it. Whereas the NFL, it just, it is, whatever. And a lot of times don't even acknowledge, the issues that they have, both in college and in pro. And so I thought that it was really, really well done the way that they did that. But the transparency with things and the access that we got literally as fans, even though from my seat at home, listen, it was that the game that the New York Guardians fell apart in St. Louis was absolutely fantastic. It was it was must-see TV. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. It was a literal train wreck. I felt great for the fans there in St. Louis, the Battlehawk fans. They were rocking the place. They were loving it. Their team was electric, and the Guardians literally fell apart. And you got to see, all of this, happen on TV. It was wonderful. I loved it. I got football, and I got drama with football, and I've got guys who I'm rooting for, and I'm invested in this thing. It was fantastic. And And I don't know if we're ever going to really get that with football back again, to where we get the raw, we get to see the good with the bad, and not just on the field, but what, transpires on the field behind the cameras. We got to see inside of that, inside of how the coaches coach, and really what kind of goes on. And that, really these things are there's a lot more happening than what we actually really think. And two, there's a lot more margin for error than what we think. The XFL really helped me to understand that we've got a lot of guys out there who are really good, talented football players that need to be playing football. One of the things that PJ Walker said was one of the things he loved most about the XFL, for whatever 2 years or whatever he was on practice squads, and that he said, all I'm doing is training. All I'm doing is practicing. All I'm doing is this. All I'm doing is that. I'm not playing games. He said it was finally fun to get back to playing football again. And that's what these guys want to do. They don't want to sit on a dang bench. They don't want to just be part of a practice squad. Now, yes, it's going to make them money, and of course they're going to do that to make money and to give themselves a shot to get back in the league. I get it. But the thing for me has always been is these guys need to be playing football. Actual football, real football. And I don't mean the stuff that they play in the preseason. And I know that some of you guys have told me that, yes, guys do make teams playing in the preseason, this, that. But these games are meaningless. They don't mean anything. When the game's on the line, the stars shine. And that's just the truth of it. When it's not, the stars don't come out. Stars don't come out for meaningless games. They don't get the opportunities to. The coaches don't call the plays from the. Now you can go in, you can run it flawless and do it and do it in such a way, and you still won't have a shot to make the team. It just is the way that it is with the pro football. And I can tell you, there's tons of the guys that got signed from the XFL that have been signed to NFL rosters, had they not have played a single down, would still be looking for a job right now. And it's because they played meaningful football, and it had nothing to do with being in any preseason game or showing anything like that. A lot of times when it comes down to this practicing and training, they've got ideas in their heads and they got things that they have to do. And the other thing with it that they don't talk about is that they have so much invested in other players that if the guys behind them don't really just completely outshine them, and you can't really do that in a practice situation because, one, you're not getting the reps when you're the guy behind, and two, it's not really conducive to what you would actually see in a game. So, if a guy just, can't do it in a game, he can't do it in a game. And, there are guys who you're gonna need to be able to practice well. There's no doubt about that. But there are guys who are just gamers. And they're not necessarily, these practice guys. I'm not saying that they don't work hard, but what I'm saying is that you need more of an opportunity than just practice and just preseason and just training. And this gives them that opportunity. The other thing that I don't get is why we can't have more than one football league. I mean, shoot, when you look at it in just United Kingdom alone, there are 4 different professional leagues. Now, granted, different tiers. 4 different professional leagues with 92 different teams, 90-some different teams. If they can have that in the United Kingdom, I think we have plenty of room for football in the spring and at least another 1 or 2 good football leagues. That's all I'm saying. I think, especially with some of these guys that we have on practice squads, with some of these guys that we have who are backup quarterbacks, if they had more ability and more teams to do that, I can tell you I would sit there and watch the XFL, and I know a lot of you would too, and I would be it was fantastic. It was good football. It was good football. It was good TV to watch. And that's what I loved about the XFL. They gave me the behind the scenes access that I wanted to see. And really, frankly, that I didn't really know that I wanted, that I ended up really wanting. And the other thing is they gave us really good football. And I think that if you can do that, I think that there's room for more leagues in this in the United States at least. That's what I think. That's kind of where I sit. I don't see there isn't any reason why really the NFL couldn't have 40 teams. Now, granted, some of the quarterback play might drop off, but we also saw that sometimes it just takes the shuffling of guys and not having to try to figure out how to use your $40 million man or your first round draft pick, because you don't really have to have a loyalty to these guys, that you can bring other guys in and other guys take the team and turn that team around. You don't get a lot of that in the NFL. It just doesn't happen because there's too much invested in these players. Whereas if we had some more of these chances, you might actually see some of these quarterbacks get a shot that never would have gotten a shot, again, and it doesn't have to be 40 team, NFL. I'm fine with another league that, has 16 teams. I don't know, but we definitely have room for more football whenever we get back to playing sports. And that's really just my rant for the day, and that two great articles on the XFL to really solidify truly just how special the XFL was. If you enjoyed the XFL, you're going to enjoy reading these two articles. I'm done with my rant. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comment sections what your thoughts are and what you think. All right, guys, stay safe out there and keep up the hope. Have a good night. Bye.